One Zambia, One Nation. Welcome to Zanis News. I'm your presenter, Mwangala Kapandula. The headlines. Manganese mines directed to examine workers for possible exposure. Disbursement of 2023 Youth Scheme Empowerment Grants launched. Government to continue working with church in the education sector. Plus, Kamanga warns against corruption in selection of female national team football players. Zanis News begins with an item from Central Province, where government has directed all manganese mining companies to get their workers examined for possible exposure to manganese. Zambia Environmental Management Authority, ZEMA Principal Inspector Christopher Kanema, says this is in view of the 35 miners who were reported to have developed a strange disease. Details in this report.
Officials from the Zambia Environmental Management Authority are inspecting the operations of manganese mines in Central Province. This follows a report that 35 workers at a manganese processing plant in Serenge district shake continuously after developing a strange illness. The officials have inspected Sanye manufacturing plant in Kabwe district.
If there are lapses in the compliance the operations.
The $60 million company ensures that the operations of the mine are environmentally friendly.
The processes that are undertaken at the plant are environmentally friendly and do not result into emissions that are detrimental to the health of our employees and to the emissions of the environment. We use a close monitoring system that does not emit water to the environment, that does not emit unnecessary gases or pollutants into the environment.
As a precautionary measure, government has directed all manganese mining companies to have their workers tested.
Okay, then you might be aware that we have a situation at the manganese processing plant in Serenge. So we want to make sure that all the plants now, manganese processing plants, the workers must be tested. The blood must be tested for the levels of manganese in the blood.
Shupekilenkonika for Zanis in Kabwe, Central Province.
Now, people in Senga Hill and Bala districts in Northern Province are living in fear after a stray lion was spotted. Department of National Parks and Wildlife Senior Warden for Northern Province, Lakson Ngandu, has confirmed to Zanis that the lion was first spotted in Mbala near the police station heading to Lake Chila last month. Mr. Ngandu explained that the beast moved from Penza to Saise Farms, where it killed a donkey and ate the tummy parts before crossing the Mbala-Nakonde Road to Kavumbu area in Senga Hill district, where it also killed a goat and consumed the intestines. He disclosed that officers from the department in Mpulungu district who rushed to the area to assess the carcasses confirmed that the animals were killed by the lion. Mr. Ngandu says officers also spotted the footprints of the lion in a maize field belonging to Henry Sichula of Kaponda area in Kavumbu village before the beast headed south to Vundoka area. And Mr. Henry Sichula of Kavumbo is appealing to government to deploy more officers to kill the beast so that people start to move freely. Meanwhile, Senga District Commissioner Justus Sikazwe, who also confirmed to the Zanis, says government is committed to ensuring the lions are killed to protect people and livestock in the area.
A suspected lion report has been confirmed, and so far 2 livestock, that is 1 goat and 1 donkey, have been lost. Contrary to the report which has been received that about 7 animals were being killed. My appeal to people in Mbala and in Senga and the surrounding areas is that please, yes, there is a confirmation that the suspected lion is roaming around. Please, they should not move aimlessly. They should at least move in a group. So in the forest, they need to avoid at the moment. And at the same time, dark hours, they need to avoid at the moment. And if at all situation give us so much pressure that we need to move, Let us not move in isolation but in a group. There it will help us. We'll be in the area, and officers today, they will be deployed again to ensure that the area is safe.
Minister of Information and Media, Chushi Kasanda, has called on the people of Chisamba district to take advantage of various empowerment programs offered by government to better their lives. Mrs. Kasanda, who is also Chisamba constituency member of parliament, told the residents to utilize the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, to acquire skills and start up businesses. Speaking during a project's monitoring and sensitization meeting at Nyakanga Primary School, Mrs. Kasanda emphasized the need for the residents to form cooperatives. The minister also announced that Chisamba Town Council, through CDF, has procured equipment for the use to rehabilitate the road network throughout the district.
Empowerment programs offered by government. In Nyankanga, the minister highlighted a number of programs.
Mashini njo twakola mamashini la njichitwa ichigreda chida cheshino greda maroti. Wanda kwamba tucharule maroti apapa tendwi pose patalike kwendwa. Undalama ya CDF yenka mulishi kwamba CDF yaringa 1.6 te. Apa ya katanda CDF ilipa 28.3. Vayenga kwamba isho shichitike suno mbenka mboma kabikao kwamba ibabeba driver bachishi chino bahaka inde ichilema. Iyo 28.3 mwenka mundalama omo mwatukusha magrants. Ulima vamu imaklabu pano wakapekwa kwa ndalama te. Nishipani maklabu yobiro akaswa kumwapula. Pali ya maklabu yobiro kwenka kuno kunyankanga te. Ono bazimae ama youth. Mwakanyufa kwamba ibabyano bakapekwa mali te. Ilo muchilindiranshi. No bantu kamusaka forming a maklabu no bantu. Atupange makampani.
And some residents expressed concern over the manner in which the Farmer Input Support Program FISIP is implemented, while others asked for free vaccination of their animals and presence of livestock officers.
Tagatambula pe ma fertilizers ma allocation zabo tagatambula so ndibu yakwamba kuti ino iyakayitiga kwamba kuti ma new cooperatives amwi atatambuli ma allocation zabo ninzi.
In response, officers from Ministry of Agriculture and those from Livestock had the following response.
Kamutola mahina mulembere mu system kamuyanji bamwe baratula mahina bambite batoti
wabwe sangombe gwabila ngombe bulwazi wa foot and mouth disease obuya bulwazi opanga ilonda amunsumbo kulumende egawula musamoyo alinde ayino jindichenda ambaula nkowuli.
Chisamba Town Council Chairperson Fred Chongo had this advice for the residents.
Ibasololiba mwibaga bweza fertilizer. Pesima members tibatkani. Ni problem ya MP. Ni problem ya DC. Ni problem ya council chairman. Amubajinchi.
Rachel Chininga reporting for Zanis in Chisamba.
Government has launched the disbursement of the 2023 empowerment grants under the National Youth Scheme. Minister of Youth, Sport and Arts, Elvis Nkandu, officially flagged off the program in Nowingu, where 200 youths have been empowered. Details in the following report by Nkweto Mumba.
He was in Luwingu district of Northern Province on an important mission. Minister of Youth, Sport and Art, Elvis Nkandu, was in the district to officially launch the 23 million kwacha National Youth Empowerment Scheme. Mr. Nkandu also handed over empowerment grants to 200 youths selected to benefit from the fund.
The grants given to the beneficiary youth under the program range from 500 kwacha kuyafika pali 5 pin. You may wish to know that the National Youth Scheme has received increased support under the new Dawn administration, given the direct benefit it has on the lives of the youth in society. No constituents should be left out. In this regard, the number of beneficiaries in each province should be evenly distributed across the country, regardless of their political affiliation.
Chomba Chileshe is Luwingu District Commissioner.
Once you receive the grants, make sure you use these grants prudently. Don't use these funds to go and drink alcohol or start engaging yourself in other activities from a girlfriends, not a boyfriends. No.
Francis Walia, an artist and also a trained teacher who is visually impaired, is one of the beneficiaries and is calling on others to take advantage of government initiatives.
Love to encourage these others who may have doubts with what the government is working, that if it's not there with you today, maybe tomorrow it will be there with you. So let's take heart.
Nkweto Mumba for Zanis in Luwingu.
Also in the news, the shortage of mealie meal in Chipata and surrounding districts is slowly stabilizing following interventions put in by government to try and resolve the escalating problem of smuggling of the commodity mainly into neighboring Malawi. A check by Zanis in Chipata today at various chain stores revealed that the price of a 25-kilogram bag of breakfast meal is now fetching at 192 kwacha, with stocks readily available. More in the following report.
Normalcy is slowly returning to Chipata following the strict measures that government has instituted to curb smuggling of mealie meal from Zambia to the neighboring Malawi. A check by Zanis in chain stores in Chipata found that the commodity is in stock as customers are not allowed to buy more than what is allowed. Before control measures, bikers and motorists from within and across were used to smuggling the commodity into Malawi, thereby creating artificial shortage of mealie meal on the local market. It is hoped that in the quickest possible time, the issue of shortage of mealie meal will purely be controlled. Reporting for Zanis, Patso Dimbani, in Chipata District, Eastern Province.
Still on mealie meal, the fight to curb smuggling on the Copperbelt province has taken a new twist as the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, has stepped in to seize all the property being used to perpetrate the vice. ACC Director General Tom Shamakamba announced in Ndola that the Commission has joined in to supplement the efforts that the combined security team is doing. Tovi Ngombe reports.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has started issuing restriction orders on vehicles and properties being used to smuggle mealie meal to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Anti-Corruption Commission Director General Tom Shamakamba announced this in Ndola today when Copperbelt Province Permanent Secretary, Anti-Corruption Commission and the Police Command inspected a parking garage where about 7,000 bags of mealie meal, allegedly destined for Democratic Republic of Congo, were found.
Once we do an investigation and we have evidence that there is illegality, we'll definitely seize this property. Then further, let me also announce that whoever wants to trade in mealie meal or maize, let him or her get the proper documents. If you don't get the proper document, that amounts to willful failure to follow procedure. It's a criminal offense. So as ACC will be charging all those whose vehicles have been impounded.
Copperbelt Police Commanding Officer disclosed that 5 suspects have since been picked in connection with the over 7,000 25 kg bags of mealie meal.
We've impounded about 7,000 bags by 25 kg. These are the trucks which are here. As you can see, there's meal. And I wish to warn members of the public that they should not involve themselves in irregularities as the commissioner said. Let us try to follow procedures.
Copper Belt Province Permanent Secretary Augustine Kasongo has warned smugglers to halt the vice as it is contributing to the shortage of the staple food.
So those millers that are conniving with these people, they must watch the space. We shall be engaging FRA very soon when we have identified those millers and advise FRA to stop giving maize to such millers because they're not helping the government. The cost of mealie meal should be 175, 185. But because some millers that are selling the same mealie meal at 220, 210 after getting maize from FRA. So we are on top of things.
The impounded mealie meal came from Lusaka. After we packed the mealie meal, they prepared the invoices, and I proceeded my journey and later slept in Kawe. The following day, I started off and I was told when I arrived in Ndola, I should drop at Ndeni so that I can take the mealie meal into the warehouse. The suspects stored the mealie meal in these houses, and also some are on these tipper trucks. Tovini Ngombe, Zanis, Ndola.
Zanis News continues. Central Province Minister Credo Nanjua has commended the Seventh-day Adventist Church for its contribution to the education sector. Mr. Nanjua says government will continue to collaborate with the church in the provision of quality education to the citizenry. Here is Conwell Mudala with the rest of the story.
They have been drawn from Northern Zambia Union Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, attending an Adventist Educators Conference. Northern Zambia Union Conference President Dr. Tommy Namitondo says the conference will help the integrating of faith in learning.
We've dubbed it a journey to excellence, and really the aim is for us to discuss as teachers what excellence can we pass to our pupils and students, or whatever type of learners we interact with. Because as Adventists, one of the things we believe in is that whatever we do, we must do it with excellence. And that must be seen in the classroom as well. Not only in the academics, but how we mentor the young people to be good citizens. And I think this is the aim of this conference. And it is very, very important to us as a church, because we also believe that I think morality is of a high value in education.
Provincial Education's Officer Mambe Hamdudu said the conference will help achieve excellence in the church and communities.
The value we are looking at is not just academic excellence. The value we are looking at is beyond the earthly gain in education, and that's to prepare our learners for heaven. We believe that if an Adventist teacher is going to realize that they are called, they'll be able to be faithful in what they do. They will be able to impact knowledge. Not only knowledge to enable a learner pass an exam, but knowledge which will enable a learner survive in society, knowledge which will provide skills, and most importantly, knowledge which will prepare a learner for heaven. I'm so much aware that as citizens, we are pilgrims in this world.
Officially opening the conference, Central Province Minister Credo Nanjua acknowledged the massive contribution of the Seventh-day Adventist Church to the education sector.
The government acknowledges the massive contribution that the Seventh-day Adventist Church have made to the education sector in Central Province and the country at large. We have a number of learning institutions at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels being supported by the church. Some of these schools include this very school, Emmanuel Secondary School, where we are right now. Musofu Secondary School, Kabwe Secondary School, Chimpempe School, which is one of the very old schools, just to mention a few. It is gratifying to note that many of the products from these learning institutions are now contributing in different ways to our development agenda.
Zanis reports in Chisamba.
A 19-year-old student from the University of Zambia, Unza, who resides in Emersdale area in Lusaka, has been raped by an unknown person. Zambia Police Service Deputy Public Relations Officer Denny Mwale has confirmed the incident to the Zambia News and Information Services Zanis in Lusaka today. Mr. Mwale says facts of the matter are that on April 7, 2023, at around 22 hours, the victim was coming from classes at Unza, going back to the boarding house in Marshlands area together with her friend. He said on their way, they met unknown people within Unza car park who offered to give them a lift to the boarding house, and when they entered the motor vehicle, a Toyota Spatial, they noticed that there were 3 men inside. He said the vehicle immediately sped off until they reached SOS in Chazanga area along Great North Road, where her friend managed to jump out of the motor vehicle and immediately alerted police. He said the victim was taken to Chingweri dump site at a named lodge where she was raped by one of the suspects. Mr. Mwale said that the suspects went away with her iPhone and left her in a room at the same lodge. Also in the news, Speaker of the National Assembly, Nelly Muti, says government's free education policy has given every Zambian child an opportunity to be successful. Speaking when she interacted with pupils from Kantashi constituency in Mufurila during a tree planting exercise, Ms. Muti urged young people to make good use of the free education policy. Mrs. Muti, who also planted trees in Kankoyo and Mufulira central constituencies, urged members of parliament to actively involve the community in planting trees to fight the negative effects of climate change. Here's a report.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Nelly Muti, has urged young people to take advantage of government's free education policy to secure a bright future. Speaking when she interacted with pupils from Kantanshi constituency in Mufulira on her tree planting exercise in constituencies, Ms. Muti said in the past, many young people from poor backgrounds did not have a chance of getting educated as their parents could not afford school fees, adding that now everyone has an equal chance of success.
There are a lot of children those days who could not go to school because they could not afford paying for school fees. But now the government has given free education, so we can concentrate on that education.
That message was needed by the head girl and head boy to take back to the various schools that they are belonging to that you can become anything you want with education.
Ms. Muti, who also planted trees in Kankoyo and Mufulira central constituencies, called for collaborated efforts to avert the effects of climate change.
We want to have a forest which are going to pass on to the next generation. Definitely. Because we've seen how our environment was damaged, so they want to leave them the way found.
Tree planting is extremely cardinal for the town of Mufulira, as mining has had damaging effects on the environment. Rachel Chisulo, reporting for Zanis in Mufulira.
From Mufulira, we move to Kasama district, where youths in Mulilan Solo ward are demanding for a youth skills center. This follows the abandonment of a youth center which has remained a white elephant for over 15 years. Details in the following report by Helen Walia.
This was supposed to be a youth center, but many years have gone by and the project is a white elephant. The structure has thick shrubs which may attract illegal activities. The youths in Mulilansalo ward want this youth center to be constructed.
Iyo ya kukura fesana, songa mwakonka fefo ma youths baku kunyo town fie na mwana mukasama. Abengi bano afyo bwarwa, abengi bahipa fefo akakuno, mo especially kunyo town, takwa afya kuchita.
Amaisina bona kanga kutuba tukwisha ko chira chino mwa bati baresanga ako ka pentri tela lingi ne fya sharifa ko bengara bombera mamuti.
And the community members say the construction of the youth center would deter youths from deviant behavior.
Construction for 15 years, should I put it that way? So it is a very useful thing if only it was completed. It has now become dangerous. As you can see, they can even murder people and throw them inside because it's overgrown by a lot of these wild flowers and so forth. So we are urging our people in authority to ensure that they complete this.
Mulilansalo Ward Councillor Leroy Insofu spells out steps being taken to bring the structure back to life.
The other project that we intend on identifying and submitting to the council with the WDC, of course, is the skills center, which has been neglected for many, many years. I took it up with the town clerk in order to retrieve the file, so we can start with the redesigning of the structure, because the structure itself is not in a good state. I think the walls are dilapidated and the structure wasn't well done. So we're hopeful and pleading with the CDFC to consider the new town structure.
Helen Walia for Zanis in Kasama, Northern Province.
In international news, United States of America Vice President Kamala Harris says recently held a conversation with the National Museum of African American History and Culture, where she shared her reflections on her historical visit to Africa. Mrs. Harris recently undertook a three-nation tour of Zambia, Ghana, and Tanzania. Our Zanis staffer Lakson Makosa monitored Ms. Harris' conversation with the National Museum of African American History and Culture and gives us the following report.
United States of America Vice President Kamala Harris says a recent historical trip to Africa was aimed at, among other things, to promote good governance, rule of law, women empowerment, and digital inclusion. Sharing her reflections on the visits to Zambia, Ghana, and Tanzania during a conversation at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Mrs. Harris revealed that Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema is doing a lot in ensuring that the rule of law and good governance is restored in the country.
Each of these three countries is really focusing on the issue of good governance and democracy. I mean, for example, Zambia, the president there came into office through a democratic process where young people turned out in record numbers to vote. And he is doing a lot to address what he needs to do around good governance.
Mrs. Harris disclosed during the program that part of her trip to Africa was also to highlight the need to economically empower women on the continent.
The work that I did focused on women was about talking about what we need to do in terms of their economic empowerment, and as a tool toward that end, what we do around digital inclusion, getting them the ability to have technology so that they can be in the banking system, in fintech and financial technology systems. So they're not just having cash that somebody might take. Dealing with what we know is when you have economic empowerment, then you can walk away from bad situations.
She also shared her experience after having visited the house she once lived in with her parents in Zambia's capital.
When we went to Lusaka, my team found his daughter, and I met with her, and it was just the most special thing. And so we talked, and she's actually writing a book about her father and his significance to the independence and present-day Zambia on the healthcare system piece of it.
While in Zambia, Mrs. Harris held bilateral talks with President Hichilema, visited Panuka Farm, and also met the business community. For Zanis, I'm Lakson Makodza.
And now sports news. Football Association of Zambia, FAZ President Andrew Kamanga has sent a stern warning to those interested in the selection of the 2023 Australia-New Zealand FIFA Women's World Cup bound squad not to entertain corruption. Kamanga says the selection of the team going to the World Cup is still open and competitive, and no corruption in the selection of players will be entertained. The Zambia women's national team beat Nigeria at the 2022 Women's Africa Cup of Nations to finish third and securing a World Cup slot. More in the forum report by Daniel Billy.
With the recent pronouncement by the football governing body FIFA that any club that sends players to the World Cup would be given a certain percentage of money, some women football clubs in Zambia have started lobbying and promoting certain players to be included on the final selection list of the team that would participate in the World Cup slated for 20th July to 20th August in Australia. And the Football Association of Zambia is alive to this fact.
There is a lot of money that will go to you, the clubs who will be sending players to the World Cup. So for that reason, we don't want corruption, because others are already posting. They've even calculated my club will get so much. So I was asking, when was your player selected? Because we are yet to get to that point. So you can clearly see what is going on. There's lobbying, others are busy on Facebook. They promote this player, that player.
First President Andrew Kamanga says selection to the World Cup is still open and will be competitive.
Going to the World Cup is still open. It's going to be competitive. So we don't want corruption. This I can even tell you now. The final team that will go to the World Cup will be subject to selection, not even trials, selection. We even impose third parties to do the selection for us, and we'll compare with what those who are entrusted will be doing. And the whole idea is to remove the element of corruption, because we really want to make sure that people go to represent the country purely on merit. It's got nothing to do with friendship.
Meanwhile, Central Province First Chairperson Chisanga Pule is happy with the growth of the Women League in Central Province.
The league progressed from its infancy. We have established now a provincial league which will be more competitive this year, with other districts bringing in their teams into the league. So the era of playing bare feet, which was a common thing in women's football in the province, is now a bygone, because now the sponsor is able to provide monies for buying boots and other kits. So our women are now more respected and they are playing football in a competitive way.
Daniel Billy, Zanis News in Kabwe, Central Province.
As we end the news, a recap of the headlines. Manganese mines directed to examine workers for possible exposure. Disbursement of 2023 Youth Scheme Empowerment Grants launched. Government to continue working with church in the education sector. Plus, Kamanga warns against corruption in selection of female national team football players. That's all we had for you on the news desk. On behalf of the production team, this has been Mwangala Kapandula. Thank you for watching.